Barrel is half full when you pour in the last gallon of hydrochloric acid. 3 men are inside, were inside. Now they're just chemical reactions happening in silence while you stand there breathing through your mouth because the fumes will scar your lungs if you're stupid enough to inhale through your nose. Your gloves are melting at the fingertips. You peel them off and drop them into a separate drum. Everything that touches the barrels goes into the fire later. Everything. Maybe these men had families. Maybe someone is sitting at a kitchen table right now, staring at a cold dinner, watching the door with that specific kind of hope that curdles into dread as the hours pass. Maybe there are children who will grow up with holes in their memories where a father should be. You don't think about it. You can't. It's because you also have people waiting for you. A mother whose medication costs more than you make in a week. A younger sister who still believes you work overnight security at a warehouse. People who depend on the money you bring home in cash, no questions asked. The logic here is brutally simple. If you refuse this work, you become the next ingredient in the barrel. No trial, no warning, just gone. Erased, like you never existed at all. You are not special. You are not a monster. You are just a man who made a choice when there were no good choices left. Let's rewind. Let's show you how you got here. You were born into poverty, and misery stuck to your skin like a chronic disease that no amount of scrubbing could remove. You dropped out of school before finishing high school because your father died and someone needed to work. And now your hands are covered in calluses from construction jobs that pay 6,000 pesos a month. That money is barely enough to survive. Not to live, just survive. Today, you're at your high school reunion. Not because you miss anyone, but because the rich kid promised to pay for all the food. The venue is nice, nicer than anywhere you've been in years. The air reeks of cologne and smugness. Everyone talks endlessly about the American dream, about their college degrees and their European vacations and their startup companies that are disrupting the market. When the inevitable question comes, what do you do for a living? The room goes silent. You answer in a low voice. Construction. Immediately the smiles become forced. They pat you on the back and feed you empty phrases like, all work is dignified. But their eyes tell a different story. Oh, it's a look of pure contempt for someone from the lower class, someone who failed to escape. You smile. You focus on eating the free food, swallowing your humiliation along with the grilled meat. On the outside, you pretend you don't care. On the inside, your self-esteem is crumbling like cheap concrete. You look at your former classmates. They're already business owners, managers. They post photos from Cancun and talk about investment portfolios. Meanwhile, you, a grown man, still have to calculate which meal of the week to skip so you can afford a pack of cheap cigarettes. You get home dragging your feet. You throw yourself on your sagging mattress and pull out your phone, looking to numb your brain with social media before sleeping. That's when you see it. An ad that seems too good to be true. Experienced construction workers needed. There's no education required. 3,000 pesos per week. Room and board included. Immediate start. Your first instinct is to keep scrolling. Life has beaten you down enough to know there's no such thing as a free lunch for people like you. When something shines too bright, it's usually poisoned bait. But then the memory of the reunion hits you again. Those looks, that pity mixed with disgust. The rage makes you stop. You decide to send a message. The response comes within minutes. An address, a time. Bring nothing. Everything will be provided. You should have known then. But knowing and having options are two different things. The meeting point is a gas station on the edge of town where the streetlights don't reach. A white van pulls up exactly on time. The driver doesn't introduce himself. He just opens the door and nods toward the back. Or inside are 4 other men. They look like you, desperate, worn down, trying not to show how badly they need this. The drive takes 3 hours into territory you don't recognize. No one speaks. The van stops at a compound surrounded by high walls and armed men who don't wear uniforms but carry weapons like they were born holding them. This is when the fear starts creeping up your spine, but you push it down because turning back now isn't an option. It never was. Inside, a man in an expensive shirt and cheap shoes looks you over like livestock. He explains the job. Construction was code. You'll be building things, yes, but not buildings. You'll be digging, moving, cleaning. The kind of work that happens at night and is never discussed in daylight. He doesn't ask if you understand. He tells you the pay. 3,000 pesos a week, cash. He tells you the rules. You don't ask questions. You don't use phones. You don't leave without permission. You don't talk about what you see. Then he tells you the final rule, the one that matters. If you try to leave, or if you talk, you don't go to jail. You disappear, completely. You think about your mother's medication, your sister's school fees, the 6,000 pesos a month that was never enough. You nod. The first week is mostly digging. Long trenches in soil that's already been dug before. You find things sometimes. Pieces of cloth, a shoe, once a watch still ticking. You learn quickly not to react. The other workers have the same dead eyes you're developing. Eyes that have seen and chosen not to see. The second week, they introduce you to the barrels. Industrial drums filled with acid strong enough to dissolve bone. Your job is simple. When bodies arrive, and they arrive often, you help load them. You pour the acid. You seal the drums. You bury them in the trenches you dug. The first time you vomit. The second time, you just shake. By the fifth time, your hands are steady. This is the moment you realize you've crossed a line you can't uncross. You are no longer the construction worker from the reunion. You are something else now. Something necessary in a system that runs on fear and silence. You tell yourself, it's survival. And it is. But survival comes with a cost that isn't measured in pesos. 3 months in, you've saved more money than you ever had in your life. You send it home in small amounts through people you're told to trust. Your mother's medication is paid for. Your sister stays in school. They think you're working oil rigs up north, but you don't correct them. At night, when you can't sleep, you think about the men in the barrels. You wonder what they did to end up there, if they deserved it. But that's dangerous thinking because you know the answer. Deserve has nothing to do with it. In this world, there's only power and the absence of power. There are those who make the rules and those who follow them or die trying to break them. You've become efficient. Cold. The man in the expensive shirt notices. He pulls you aside one day and offers you more money. A promotion. Security work, he calls it. But you've learned their language now. Security means enforcement. It means being the reason someone else ends up in a barrel. You say yes, because saying no means you go in the barrel, because your family needs the money. Now, because you've already crossed so many lines that one more doesn't seem to matter. 6 months in, you're standing over the barrel again. Adding acid to bodies you helped create this time. The fumes burn. Your conscience burned out weeks ago. This is you now. Not a victim, not a monster. Just a man doing what men do when the system gives them only one path forward. You finish your work. You wash your hands in a bucket of soapy water that does nothing for the stains you can't see. You collect your money, you go back to your bunk, and you sleep without dreaming, because dreaming requires hope, and hope is a luxury you can't afford. Tomorrow, you'll do it again. And the day after. Not because you want to. Because in this hell, the strong prey on the weak. And you've decided which side of that equation you'd rather be on. You've chosen survival over dignity, life over morality. And that choice, more than the acid, or the bodies, or the blood, is what really dissolves you. Piece by piece. Until the person you were is as gone as the men in the barrels. This is you. This is what poverty and desperation can turn a regular person into when the world offers no other options, no heroes, no rescue, no justice, just survival, and the terrible cost of staying alive.